The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys! This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw Dating, preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and broadcasting live from Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star. Now, your hosts, Jess Navarez, Aisha Morrison, Kelsey Charles, and Jane Slater.
How often do you use the point spread to motivate the team?
I don't know if I ever have. No, I have. What is it this week?
5.5.
We're underdogs? We're good. All right. Just wrote my Saturday night speech. I'm good. No, I've never used it, but I'll just say this: we're nobody's underdog. So if you need a quote.
Ooh, okay.
If you needed a quote, Mike McCarthy gave you the quote of the weekend right there. We are not underdogs. Thanks so much for joining us. We are also not underdogs here on Girls Talk, Boys Talk,
No,
sponsored
ain't.
by Jigsaw, the preferred dating app of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm Haley Sutton, joined by Aisha Morrison and Jess Navarez. Ladies, what a fun start to the morning, right? It's always a good morning when you wake up and say you're not an underdog. Obviously, that was Mike McCarthy at his press conference. The final question, they asked him about the spread, if the spread was ever a motivating factor. And short answer, no. It's not.
Sure. I like his answer more.
Yeah, but I just wanted to, I'm glad we're starting with that first, and I wanted to open up to you guys. When you have a coach like Mike McCarthy who is pretty open about keeping the distractions, and then you hear him like that, get a little sassy to end the press conference. What'd you think about Mike? Aisha, we'll start with you.
No, I tweeted it. I was excited about it because we've been looking for that. We've been looking for him to. I will say this season, I feel like he's gotten more comfortable with the media. Sure. He's joking back and forth with them. Whatever him and Clarence Hill have going on is hilarious.
And it's a mess.
Yes.
Can I just say really quick, it's always so fun because when we start those press conferences, there's an unwritten order, right? It's always one guy who's from the Dallas Morning News, or I'm not sure where he's from. I think his name is David. David Moore. Yeah. And then it always goes to Clarence. And it's so funny because David Moore kind of sets the tone, and then the tone is just immediately erased by Clarence because he's such a clown, you know? And Mike is, it's good that you point that out because Mike just has picked up on that, and so I'm glad you pointed that out.
But I'm glad
anyways.
that it sets the tone, right? I think that the Cowboys we talked about, they're playing far better than what people expected. But this team, if you listen to all of the interviews, all of this, these players and these coaches have been confident about Cooper Rush. They've been confident about Tyler Smith. They've been confident about these defensive players coming in and making an impact. They've been saying these things. So I think that it's just humorous to them, still. And Tank has been tweeting out underdogs after every game, so it's resonating with them.
Yeah, and what I really like about it too is it shows how comfortable Mike McCarthy really is within himself as a coach and within this team, because really looking at the other side of things has really given me an appreciation for Mike McCarthy and how much he's settled in here, because you listen to other press conferences with other coaches, other head coaches that come on there, and it's not the same kind of vibe, it's not the same kind of feeling, and I think it's just so healthy, and I just feel like it's a very healthy environment that Mike McCarthy is exuding here in the building, and I think everybody feeds off of that, and I think now this year we're seeing it more than ever, because you saw sparks of it, and I talked about this a few weeks ago. You saw sparks of it even in Hard Knocks with the mojo moment. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's kind of out of character for Mike McCarthy, but really what it was him getting comfortable, because now this is who he is, and I love it. It's fun to hear the banner, but when Mike McCarthy said that, I wish there was a live camera on my reaction. I was in my apartment, I was like, oh man, that was good. And I had to rewind it. I was like, good for Mike McCarthy. So,
yeah, and it's so interesting you bring up the comfortability of Mike McCarthy. One thing that I've kind of realized pretty quickly in this business is that, not really quickly, it's something I've kind of always recognized as a reporter, but these guys are people first. And I preach that all the time. I have always preached that my entire journalism career, is that these guys are people first. And so just like the players have to warm up to you, they have to get comfortable. They're not going to tell you their life story the first time you meet them, right? They're not going to, maybe show who they are actually like right up front, because they got to earn that trust. And so I think now that we're going into year 3 with Mike McCarthy, he kind of knows the Clarence Hills and he knows the John Machotas and he knows the Todd Archers in the room. So it's a little bit easier for him to have those jokes and to make those comments and know that like it's not going to get taken out of context or that kind of thing. Sure. So we love to see that. Something else that just came out today that we want to talk about that I'm going to pull up right now, the injury report. Yesterday we had some question marks, namely Jake Ferguson was a surprise. He did not practice. So we start with him. He did practice today. He was limited. He did some individual drills. One thing I will point out, he had a sleeve on his, I believe it was his left knee. So obviously he's working through some stuff there. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but he's just listed as limited. So he did do some stuff today off to the side. Also limited that we talked about before the show, Donovan Wilson was limited yesterday, limited today with an ankle injury. Let's see who else is on this list. Obviously, Dak still did not practice. He's been off to the side. But today, something interesting about Dak, while he was going through his strengthening progressions, he did everything with a football in his hand. So not sure how far he is progressing.
Yeah, it's
but
just good to see that they're just going through the motions as they're supposed to be, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's see any other people on this
Jordan
list.
Lewis,
Jordan Lewis, yep, I'm working on the list. Jordan Lewis was back up to limited, which was nice. We did see him yesterday doing some band work off to the side. So good to see him getting back into the works. And so those are kind of the guys that we paid attention to today. Anyone surprise you guys on that?
Yeah, it's not so surprising, but something that I really think we should keep an eye on is Jake Ferguson. I think he's really becoming a key part of the offense overall, even when it just comes to the pass pro. I think Jake Ferguson is working his way up to establish his name within this offense. And so anytime you see an offense really vibing and gelling like the offense has been, you don't want to see a player taken out of that, right?
Yeah.
So the good thing, though, is, they've preached about this. There's depth with really this team. So I'm keeping a very close eye on Jake Ferguson personally. Aisha, what about you?
Honestly, I got something to say about a lot of them.
Here we go.
I was just starting with one, but here we go. Open the can of worms, girl.
So I think Quinn Bohanna being limited.
I knew you were going to bring him Quinn.
Don't do me like that. Don't do me like that. But I'm just
it.
glad to see that he's practicing, because I think that he has. Y'all, he's vicious.
Yeah.
And it's just like, a lot of teams, like even last week, with Payne and Allen, like you're looking at the game plan and you're like, you don't want to run into those guys. Teams are doing the same thing about the Cowboys DTs right now. That's why they're attacking the edges. So I think that Quinn Bohanna is important to what's going on with Jake Ferguson. Obviously, you want him out there. But in this game, the Rams, like the middle of the field is one thing that Matt Owen, my teacher, the professor, was pointing out to me, is that the tight ends might get some burn in this game, because the linebackers for the Rams are having trouble in coverage. Now, they're fantastic against the run. We saw that their run defense is good, but I want to see Dalton Schultz and Jake Ferguson and those guys get involved this game, so that's important to me. Also, to Connor McGovern coming back, I think, is a big deal, and being fully working out in practice and going through everything this week, because we saw last week that he kind of struggled. I mean, quite honestly, everybody struggled. I mean, literally, like Payne and Allen, literally everyone got a piece on that offensive line. So I think it's good for him to get some full work, get comfortable into this offensive line, the communication, all that stuff. And then we'll see what happens with this rotation with Jason Peters and him in this game, and if they ramp him up more. And I think it'll give us a better idea of what Jason Peters' role is going to be on this offensive line moving forward. Yeah,
I want to get to Jason Peters in a minute because we talked about him before. But someone else on here that we did mention that completely went over my head.
Boom.
CeeDee Lamb did not practice today with a
I literally was like,
tater tots.
Yeah. He did not practice today with a groin issue. The good thing is we spoke to him today. Today was CeeDee Day. We did speak to him afterwards. He was in good spirits. He said he's fine. There's nothing for anybody to worry about, but obviously was enough to keep himself out of practice today. So obviously when they take the field tomorrow, that'll be something just to pay attention to when that injury report comes
Probably
out.
preventative, yeah. They're doing a lot of preventative stuff, like you can tell with holding guys out in certain practices and load management and stuff like that.
And I can appreciate that completely because even I believe it was yesterday, Mike McCarthy talked about Donovan Wilson and doing a lot of things for preventative measures.
Managing his workload,
honestly,
I think is the terminology.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's so respectable because we're still very early in the season. And I think that's, we forget about how much of a season that there really is left to this game, only being this early in. Do what you got to do to save these guys. They have a lot more to do, and I think a lot more to prove as the schedule continues on.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, that you bring up how early it is in the season because Mike did speak about that. I believe it was yesterday when we were on the subject, just of how important it is for injury management and making sure that these guys are doing what they need to do to take care of themselves. One of the things that he pointed out was just making sure that the team is understanding that there's 17 games this year now. And I think that one extra game, the shortened preseason, or I guess the difference in preseason, all of that is making a difference. It's kind of changing the way that they approach that. So it's good that he's recognizing that injury management or the load management, so to speak. So that's important. And I also want to note that Noah Brown was a full participant.
Yes.
So in the event that CD, for whatever reason feels banged up, you got to feel confident that you've got Noah Brown, especially with a neck injury. Those can go either way. So it's good that he is full go.
Also important, too, I mean, even you're talking about the 17-week season. Mike McCarthy's not going to sit up here and just be talking about the playoffs, but this is preparation for that as well. You want these guys to be, healthy longevity-wise. So I think a lot of the load management and stuff we're seeing is also because this team is looking to hopefully make a deep push in the playoffs. I mean, we're all hoping for it.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy that
that's the conversation
that we're
now.
talking about
that was
working
not
towards
the
playoffs
conversation
instead of that the season is over, woe is me, no Dak Prescott.
Oh, and that's funny.
That was not the conversation after week 1, right?
At all.
But it's a good problem to have, everybody. It's all good. But something else, too, that, Haley, we didn't get to talk about on yesterday's show was the long snapper position. And I know you had plenty of stuff you wanted to throw in there about that because losing Jake McQuaid is huge. And I think it kind of gets lost in the mix because long snapper, it's a very important position, but it's not a flashy position, right? Sure. When it comes to really knowing the game of football, you know how vital that position is. So, Haley, what have you seen? You were boots on the ground with the 2 new signings on practice squad, of course, for that long snapper position.
Yeah, so it was something I believe that came up on Monday into Tuesday where they worked out 4 on Monday, signed to Tucker Addington and Matt Overton. It's like a tongue twister.
Yes.
But both of those guys have been getting work in. They're so far on the other side, and y'all have bad vision, so it's hard to see all the way down. But what I can say is I did get a chance to speak to the special teams room, namely Brian Anger and Brett Maher yesterday, because I feel like long snapper is one of those positions where, you don't necessarily think about it because I don't want to say it's a minuscule part of the game and diminish it because it's an important role, but it's we're so worried about the defense or what the quarterback's doing or what the O-line's doing that we just don't a lot of times think to talk about the long snapper. So I think this is a good problem to have. I think we give some love to those long snappers, but I'm going on a tangent here. Speaking to Brian and Brett yesterday, one of the things that they are both looking forward to doing is building chemistry because if anybody on the field needs chemistry with their long snappers, it's your kicker and your punter.
Right.
And so both of them, I think, are just really excited to have these 2 guys new to the team and really kind of welcome them in. And I think if anyone's going to help them build that chemistry and become a part of the team, it's going to be those guys. So that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting right now. They're doing good, but it's their first day out. What's that little Uzi picture that always goes it's my 3rd day out. So I'm sure that's kind of how they're feeling. I didn't get a chance to speak to them today, but I imagine they're just trying to get worked in. So definitely something we'll keep an eye out on for tomorrow as they go into practice.
Yeah, definitely. And we didn't get to talk about this really during the week. It was a lot going on this week, but I'm glad we're getting to talk about it now. So Matt Overton, actually a former Pro Bowler with the Indianapolis Colts, and then Tucker Addington is the Houston Gamblers' 6th-round pick of the 2022 USFL Draft. So that gives you a little insight as to what we're working with here. I think either option could be great. We didn't get to see him at practice today, but I'm sure either way, they will be workable into this Cowboys locker room. Like,
Overton got some skin in this game. So, I mean, these guys, they have some experience. They know what they're doing. But when you talk about the chemistry and stuff, I think that's going to be important this week because, Bones is going up against his former
just
team.
getting ready to say that.
And we know he can get a little, he can get a little wild out there. So we'll see what he's been chill this year, but I'm telling you, like, be looking for him to be trying to do some stuff. I think that there are some areas also too on special teams where they're susceptible in coverage. So we'll see what they got going on special teams this week. Like when you start talking about the complementary football, special teams has been a big reason why the Cowboys have been, kept afloat here. So the chemistry that you're talking about is important moving forward. And we won't know until we know, right? Like we don't know what it's going to look like until the game day. So fingers crossed.
It's one of those things you got to put your faith in, right? And it's interesting too that you bring up Bones and his former team. I did ask the guys about that yesterday as well. And just, like what's the benefit of that? And it seems like such a cliche or an easy question, but Brett Maher's face, just immediately lit up. He's like, I mean, like what could you have better than to have a guy who not only has the skill that Bones has, but to have the insight to Matt, of the team that you're matching up against. So I think it's going to be a fun sort of matchup and a fun homecoming, so to speak, for Bones.
Something else we didn't talk about yesterday that I got to give him his flowers. Damon Clark, 33, coming back. There's a lot of talk about what his role is going to be, and I just wanted to say, if he's doing predominantly special teams, okay. That's what everyone does to move up the chain. I don't understand what the big deal is about. Yeah, absolutely. That's the best way to kind of integrate him back into this world, this field, and for him to get his football, his football body back and be taking contact on. And it sounds like he looked good on the sled a couple times this week. I just wanted to talk about him and also this training staff and what they have done to get him ready and to get him healthy. They are taking on projects that a lot of people wouldn't have done. Yeah. And this is a player, y'all. Like, Damon Clark's no joke. He's instinctive. He can tackle. He can cover. He can do a lot. He can do a lot of Micah Parsons-esque stuff. Yeah. And he's aggressive like that. And to be adding him at some point in time, at any point in time, to this linebacker room is going to be helpful. So I wanted to give him his flowers and Britt Brown and all those folks because I think we'll all appreciate it in the long run for this linebacker room.
You sound like Mike McCarthy this morning. That's pretty much word for word.
Oh, that's what he said
in his press conference.
Oh,
today.
yeah, I heard the bits and pieces about it.
Yeah,
yeah, and I like that. We're seeing again. We talked about it yesterday. Mike McCarthy don't play this training staff. They don't play about guys coming back earlier, and I think that's a big reason why we may see Dak out longer than what it's being talked about.
Expect.
Exactly, because it doesn't matter what you say. He literally is just now, getting on the field and gripping a ball like this. There's a process that goes to it, but I just wanted to, again, highlight the way that this team is handling injury issues and the way that they are able to, overcome some with taking guys like even Jalen Smith. Mm-hmm. People were like, what are you doing right now? But you got a Pro Bowler out of that player. Like, he had a Pro Bowl year, you know? So I just wanted to talk about that, highlight that a little bit. Shout out to you, Damon Clark.
Yeah, and how cool is it for the Cowboys as well? Like you said, just being able to recognize that they can take chances on guys and, turn Pro Bowlers like you mentioned. So we are excited about Damon Clark. He has been having good practices so far, so I'm excited to see him progress even more as the season carries on. Let's go ahead and take our first quick break here on Girls Talk, Boys Talk, sponsored by Jigsaw, the preferred dating app of the Dallas Cowboys. When we come back, we're going to talk a little offensive line, and we're talking about the GOAT. That's next.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, Pepsi-loving football fans, it's time we had a lesson in trash talk. And I'm not talking about that stuff that happens on the field. What I'm talking about is trash, and it's the only thing that belongs in your garbage can. Now, recycling might not be as thrilling as converting a 4th and long, but next time you're thinking about throwing that Pepsi Zero Sugar bottle away, just cap it back up and pretend you're down by 6 with the recycling bin wide open. Know the difference? Make a difference. Be a team player and recycle. Visit PepsiTrashTalk.com to learn more.
I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
And they snap it to Prescott, who looks right. It's not there. He escapes left. He'll run for a first down.
Just like football, when it comes to crypto, it's important to have a team you can trust. With blockchain.com, I know I'm in good hands. Since 2011, they've been trusted by millions around the world to buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrency.
Prescott's going to run this himself. Run it up the middle, and he scores.
Whether you're new to crypto or an active trader, they've got you covered. What are you waiting for? Get started at blockchain.com.
To Girls Talk, Boys Talk, sponsored by Jigsaw, the preferred dating app of the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to get into a little bit of offensive line talk on both sides of this matchup, but first we go to Jess.
All right, we'll get the ultimate fan experience for the ultimate Cowboys fan. Join Dallas Cowboys United, presented by Globe Life, starting at just $20. Ladies, I'm not going to stop saying what a good deal that is. Now, join us and get your fan pack, exclusive benefits, and even more. Visit DallasCowboys.com/United for details to join today. Love that. $20. It's a good deal.
It's not a whole lot you can get with $20 anymore.
You can get a, let's see, ultimate, let me read this again. You can get an ultimate fan experience, Haley. Okay, you can get that.
Oh, goodness. You know who's not making $20 is Zach Martin, the GOAT of this Dallas Cowboys offensive line. Mike McCarthy saying how much of a staple he has been on this team, not just from an offensive line standpoint, but just in the locker room.
Yeah.
He just kind of praised his consistency, his ability to communicate. He talked about the matchup between Aaron Donald and Zach Martin potentially being a matchup to watch. Just kind of depends on where Aaron's going to line up. We'll get to that in a minute. But you know, just to have a guy like Zach Martin on your team, on your squad, in the locker next to you, how cool for these guys.
Yeah. Well, and it's so important too because again, I feel like Zach Martin is such a staple player that he becomes kind of a shadow into how much he does. And he becomes kind of unappreciated for how much he has held down this O-line through thick, through thin, through up and down, through everything that this O-line has been through these last 4 weeks, right? So it was interesting because y'all know I like to go back and listen to what our opponents are saying for the week. I like to scout them out a little bit and say, what are you saying? But it is important to get a good view of it. So it was funny because he was mentioned by Sean McVay. Sean McVay talked about Zach Martin specifically. Sean McVay talked about a lot of stuff yesterday, so we'll get into it. But and I enjoy listening to Sean McVay talk, so it was good insight. But he talked about Zach Martin. He also talked about a lot of other guys being potential threats, just overall to this team. And Terrence, if we want to roll that clip, now would be perfect.
And it's tough. I would say physically, the short weeks become more challenging the more years you play. And that's a little bit tougher. And the mental aspect probably gets a little bit easier just because you've seen a lot of football and gone against players and teams and coordinators and all that kind of stuff. You have some Rolodex of what it might look like before you turn the tape on. Sleep's definitely a portion of it as well.
Okay, so that was actually Matt Stafford, and I loved this clip because something that I kind of jumped ship there. I thought we had a Sean McVay clip. Sorry. Brain fog, everybody. It is Thursday. I did not have coffee today. But you know what Matt Stafford was talking about was in terms of everybody saying the Rams are coming off of a disadvantage and having a short week. That was his response to that. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting in his take of that because he said the older you get, the harder it gets. And you would think it would be opposite, right, from a football perspective.
No, I don't think so. I'm going to disagree, and this is something that I will get on my soapbox and talk about all the time.
Get on it, girl.
We just talked about how important it was for Mike McCarthy to, take these injuries seriously for these players. And so for the NFL to consistently allow these players to play on Sunday, and then turn around and to play again 3 days later. And it's not just playing, it's
preparing
your body. I think I read somewhere where for a football player after a game, it takes your body 48 full hours just to get back to normal. So when you take that science, right? Patrick Walker would be so happy I said that. You take that science and then you shrink that down, because now everything you're doing in a short week is condensed. So you're trying to get these practice reps in. You're staying up extra late because now you have to watch the film on your own time, or you're having to stay late to watch the film. You're having to get in the weight room and work a little bit harder. And then luckily for them, it's a home game, but like for some of these guys, they're having to hop on a plane and travel to their games. I mean, I've been an athlete before, and like I said this the other day, I've never been a professional athlete, but the grind is hard. And it's hard on your body. So I can't imagine, you know, as a 28-year-old woman right now, that kind of stuff gets easier as you get older, because your body changes as you get older. Your tolerance for things changes as you get older. Your workload and your ability to do things. I mean, that's why people retire. Because it's hard. And so I will always dislike the NFL for putting these players at such a disadvantage. I mean, look at Tua. You know, I know we've spoken about that a little bit, but it's just like it just puts the players at such a disadvantage. That's my soapbox.
Can we get a little applause noise for Haley there in the back? Like, that was
because
incredible.
It drives me insane, and it's like what drives me the most insane too is like, you know, and this is not all fans. I don't like putting everybody into one basket, but you know, like, it's just infuriating thinking about the things that these players are putting themselves through for the love of the game, and to not have the league taking care of them the way that they're giving. It's bonkers to me. And when you think about the science that we have and the access to things that we have, I cannot wait for somebody to step up and say we are no longer doing this slate. I mean, it's I won't say too much, but it's maddening.
I also thought it was interesting too that he mentioned sleep, because that's really not something
when do you sleep? You're watching film, you're trying to eat, you're trying to nourish your body.
And it's not something you think about as a professional athlete, and you know, just watching a football game on Sundays, you don't think about, hey, did they sleep this week? Like, how much sleep did they actually get? But then you think about it in terms of your normal day-to-day life. And I know for me, if I'm not sleeping, I'm not productive. And so I can't imagine how they go and put their bodies through what they do and do everything that they do, whether it be tape, practice, rehab for some of these guys going in to make sure that they're getting healthy on top of trying to get enough sleep. It put a new perspective for me today, so I just wanted to share that little clip.
I mean, and then you also have to talk about, when you're specifically talking about Matthew Stafford, this guy's been he's been sacked 16 times, yo.
Yeah.
And
it hurts.
And you have to look at the fact that also, you know, the San Fran defense is very, very, very physical. They're tackling hard. I mean, you look at Cooper Kupp, I mean, the guy had 19 targets, 14 receptions. Those tackles he was taking are going to have him sore. And so I realistically think that anyone that thinks that them coming off of a short week with how brutally physical that game was last week, it's just crazy to think that anybody on that side of the field isn't going to be a little fatigued, a little bit and they may, you know, dig deep and really, you know, make a statement. I'm not saying that they don't have it in them, especially offensively. I look to see Sean McVay, you know, maybe try to switch it up or whatever, coming in, you know, against such a juggernaut of a matchup with their offensive line issues and then the Cowboys defensive line. But I do think that is going to play a factor in this game, and we would be crazy to not think that it's not going to.
And it was interesting too, because obviously they both were, Sean McVay and Matt Stafford were asked about that number of sacks. It's very unusual, and just how quickly it all happened for him. And so they asked him, and he was like, "Well, I have to do a better job." Sir, what?
But honestly, though,
and he does, but what I really appreciate about Matt Stafford is the leadership there. And he said, "Hey, I need to do a good job."
That he really doesn't need to take responsibility.
Well, get the ball out quicker. That's fair to say, right? But also, to get sacked that many times, it's not just you that's at fault for all of that. So that was interesting. And Sean McVay was like, our number one priority is to take care of Matt Stafford, because, you obviously cannot have your starting quarterback getting sacked that many times during a game.
And it's kind of like, I look at football as a machine, right? And when you look at the Rams, to me, I think they look a lot like what people expected the Cowboys to look like. And when I say,
the quote.
And I'm just being honest, because when you look at what they lost receiver core-wise, Van Jefferson, very important guy, Odell Beckham. And now you see Tyler Higbee and Cooper Kupp, who's gonna get his touches. They scheme him open too well for him not to, be able to get some receptions. But when you look on the other side, I mean, Allen Robinson is like, where he at? Where he at right now? And part of that is because a lot of the looks that the Cowboys got last year when they couldn't run the ball, when they could not pass the ball, are the same looks that the Rams are getting right now. Keying in on everything, biting on everything. Like, we know that you have, deficiencies here offensively. And then also, too, when you look at what they do in the run game, I'm not going to say they're completely inept as a run offense. There are some things they can do. They use a lot of misdirection. I call it decoration. I'm just sprinkling some motion right here. You know what I'm saying? And that is essentially to help their guys out. It's to help get their guys open looks. It's to help this struggling offensive line. This is not a power offensive line. They're not trying to run the ball down your throat, the A and B gap. They're trying to do some fancy stuff, some exchanges, get your linebackers not trusting their eyes, which they're going to have to do. We'll talk about later. But this offense is ran through Matthew Stafford, and there are numerous instances on tape where he has guys there. And he's getting, they're coming up against a defense that already is making you get the ball out. It's kind of not even it's like a moot point that he has to get the ball out, because he already does. It's to a point also to where he's like, he's throwing into some tight boxes, tight windows. He's trusting his guys, but he's not trusting. There ain't no second, third read, y'all. This is where I want to go with the ball right now, and a lot of that does have to do with the offensive line. But then at the same time, you say to yourself, this is a veteran quarterback. What is going on in his mind with some of his progressions and some of his decision making? And if the Cowboys defense, can take advantage of the turnovers, and get turnovers, get this team better field position, I think that's going to be a key part of this game. He also puts the ball on the ground. So, yes, I feel you on the offensive line part. It's a machine, absolutely. Like, he can't just be, it's not just on him. But also, too, they lost some key guys in this offseason, and to me, it is very similar to what you would have thought the Cowboys offense would have looked like without a Noah Brown stepping up, without Tyler Smith actually coming in and being suitable as a left tackle. I think we would have saw some of these same things. And then also, too, just with Cooper, him coming in and being the quarterback that he is. We didn't expect these things, but I do think that if that didn't happen, the Cowboys would look very similar to how the Rams look right now offensively.
I want to point out, too, since we're talking about similarities, the Rams have had struggles in the red zone. So this is going to be a game of you need touchdowns, and that goes for both sides of the ball here. Mm-hmm. Field goals are, it's even playing field at this point, because we have Brett Money Maher. We appreciate you so much. Give you all your flowers. We appreciate him. But they need the Cowboys offense, first of all, needs to capitalize when they're in the red zone. They need to score touchdowns to win this game, because they also need to take advantage of the fact that the Rams are struggling with the same thing. And so really, if you want it to become more of a power play for you, now I'm using hockey terms. Wow, there you go. If you want it to become more of a power play, you're the ones that have to step up and capitalize in the red zone. So the Cowboys, oh my goodness, it's going to be so frustrating if we don't see a touchdown scored within that first quarter, because that is something that I think is very overlooked when these games are won. And they've been great games. Everybody's played great. But we have not seen the Cowboys scoring touchdowns. And that is so important. That's going to be a key to this game is, you can score points. That's great. We love you, Brett Maher, but I don't want to see a lot of you this week, because ultimately, that's not what's going to win this game. And it's, I think keeping the Rams behind the sticks, making sure they don't even get the opportunity to be in the red zone is going to be also key. So it's something to look out for.
Yeah, I know we spoke about this earlier in the week, but Mike McCarthy said earlier about how, you don't know what your team looks like until after 4 weeks. And I think that this is really going to be a game where they can kind of exploit that a little bit. Now we know what Cooper Rush looks like. We know where he looks comfortable. We know what he can do from an arsenal standpoint. We know the weapons he has. He has a new toy in Michael Gallup, so that adds the vertical threat, the deep threat down the field. And then you factor in the fact that people are going to mark Michael. You know, we've seen the way he was covered on Sunday, the penalties that he drew, so that adds another layer to the defense. So I think what's really cool about this matchup is you're playing a team that's tired, that's coming off of a short week, as Matthew Stafford spoke about, maybe still trying to find themselves. Like, are they that, you know, are we the reigning defending Super Bowl champions? Like, so they're still maybe searching for their identity, a depleted offensive line that's struggling to keep the quarterback safe. So you have all of those factors, and now you have a Cowboys team that's really hitting their momentum. They've had the momentum, the thermostat, so to speak, on the defensive side of the ball. And so I really think that Sunday is a great opportunity to maybe be a little bit more flashy. We talked about not taking those risks on 4th and 1 late in the game. Maybe this is a week where you can try and take those risks because Michael Gallup feels better going into the game. CD has got his swagger back. Zeke and Tony are finding ways to get yards in a struggling run game. So I really think this is going to be a fun matchup just from that perspective, because we spend so much time talking about how well the defense is, how much the defense has held it down in the house, so to speak. And I think now this is like the offense is like coming out party where I really think this is a good opportunity for them to exploit
and on
that.
the other side of the ball, when you look at the Rams defensive line, like, they aren't getting a ton of pressure right now. That's not their game right now. You're looking at, when you look at losses, the loss of Von Miller is showing true to be a big deal, because when you have another guy on that defensive line with an Aaron Donald, it's too much to account for. So you're seeing now, like, absolutely, they're more stout against the run, but I think you can do some things to them at the second level. And then also, too, there are going to be passing opportunities there as well, depending on what you see with Jalen Ramsey and seeing if he's going to shadow at all with CeeDee Lamb. But I think that the matchup that I want to see is Michael Gallup against Jalen Ramsey, because it's something about it's something about that matchup, and I think you talked about it. It's something about that matchup that's interesting to me, because one thing that Jalen Ramsey has in this last couple of years really put into his arsenal is tackling. Like, he's not afraid to come up and tackle and things like that. But this last couple of weeks, he struggled in the open field making tackles.
I was just getting ready to say, he didn't look like it against the 49ers.
Yes, the Rams themselves in space are having trouble tackling. And so I'm really hoping that Kellen Moore draws up some yak opportunities for these guys to get yards after catch and really, get after that defense.
Something else, another flashy name that was flashed around a little bit this week because of a viral post due to him taking care of some business to a Wild fan. Don't be that fan, please. Bobby Wagner, he also talked in a press conference, and something that he mentioned was the Cowboys' rushing attack. He said that it's a very good balance. Zeke falls forward, Pollard's more on, oh my goodness, my pen is flying. Pollard's more on the edges, and that you have to be conscious of the styles of run plays that each guys have, and that the Cowboys do a good job of mixing it up well. He also mentioned that the offense starts these guys going with their run attack, and that opens up the game for everybody else. He also mentioned that Cooper Rush is making great throws, and he is a guy that they need to respect. Ooh. So I think that says a lot. For Bobby Wagner to be talking about Cooper Rush, I mean, give Cooper Rush all his flowers. We already know that, but I thought that was interesting because he said, obviously, the press conference started of, hey, what are you going to do if you see Dak this week? And he said, it's my understanding we're not seeing Dak this week.
I'm not going to worry about it.
And he said, either way, though, Cooper Rush is somebody we need to respect. So I thought that was a very interesting way for him to answer that question. He also said that Cooper Rush has been very great at handling blitz pressure so far, and that just because he's good at it so far doesn't mean he will be good at it on Sunday. That the Rams do their blitz differently.
The eye roll from Aisha just now, y'all. I wish we could have that in
I'm just the messenger, you guys. I'm just saying what Bobby Wagner said. He's talking his talk. I don't know. At Cooper Rush, if you're listening to this, there you go. There's your fuel
Cooper
for your fire this week.
Well, I mean, ask him why they have to blitz. Ask him why they have to blitz.
He also mentioned he mentioned something that we
getting pressure with 4
that we've echoed here a lot on this podcast is how much Cooper Rush is well respected because he's been around so long. He knows the ins and out of the scheme of the offense. He said that he should be able to recognize the blitz because he has experience and age being around the Cowboys. So I thought that was interesting for him to mention. So, there's my tales from the other side, listening to Bobby Wagner, Sean McVay, and Matt Stafford.
We respect Cooper. We respect Bobby. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the defense here on Girls Talk, Boys Talk, sponsored by Jigsaw, the preferred dating app of the Dallas Cowboys.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, Pepsi-loving football fans, it's time we had a lesson in trash talk. And I'm not talking about that stuff that happens on the field. What I'm talking about is trash, and it's the only thing that belongs in your garbage can. Now, recycling might not be as thrilling as converting a 4th and long, but next time you're thinking about throwing that Pepsi Zero Sugar bottle away, just cap it back up and pretend you're down by 6 with the recycling bin wide open. Know the difference? Make a difference. Be a team player and recycle. Visit PepsiTrashTalk.com to learn more.
With Smoothie King's original Angel Food and new Angel Food Slim without added sugar, you no longer have to choose between treating yourself and hitting your goals this summer. You don't have to choose between great taste and feeling great. Because at Smoothie King, every blend is made with whole fruits and no syrups, so you can satisfy your cravings without compromise. The only choice you will need to make is which one is best for you. Try our classic Angel Food or the new Angel Food Slim, blended without added sugar. Smoothie King, rule the day.
Welcome back to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, sponsored by Jigsaw, the preferred dating app of the Dallas Cowboys. They say defense wins championships, but we win championships here with Jess giving us this next read.
Oh my, that is so sweet.
Did you like that?
I love that. I'm going to cry. Okay. All right, let's talk Fall Fest before Haley makes me emotional over here today. Fall officially kicks off at the Star with our first ever Fall Fest on Saturday, October 8th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Come out to the Tostitos Plaza, Championship Plaza, keyword championship Plaza, for a day of family fun, from a beer garden to a petting zoo, face painting, live music, fall-inspired food, all the good stuff. I even saw pumpkin patch on Instagram, so there you go, very Instagrammable. The event is free and open to the public. For more info, visit thestarinfrisco.com. You know I'm going to be there.
We know you love pumpkins.
I love pumpkins. I love it.
Lord.
I love it.
We know Jess loves her pumpkins. Ladies, something we always talk about is the defense for this Dallas Cowboys team and just how effective they've been. Mike McCarthy calling them the thermostat of this team because they regulate what happens with everybody else. So it kind of feels like there's not much they can't do. But Aisha, as you pointed out during the break, there is something maybe that they could work on. So I'm going to send things right over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said earlier, I'm trying to figure out if Sean McVay is going to surprise us all and be like, you know what, let's actually try to run the ball on these guys, because, you know, to me, the film says that in certain instances, I think that last week the Cowboys did a far better job in the second half cleaning up the run defense. But they are going at the left side, well, opposite side, whatever side DeMarcus Lawrence ain't on, they running away from him because he's fantastic. And I think that the Cowboys are going to have to contain better. They're going to have to really trust their eyes. They're going to have to shed and tackle. This offensive line isn't a power offensive line, but they do have the ability to pull, reach, block, get guys off their mark, and really get to the second level. So this defense is going to, I love the adjustments that are being made in the second half, DQ. I love it. However, I would love for these gentlemen to come out and be that dominant against the run to start the game. I do think you get some help there with Jaron Kearse coming in, filling in a lot of that linebacker spot. This also, too, I don't think offensively what they do, it makes you have to get out of your base defense, which is the big nickel, and they do that a lot. So the safeties are going to have to, and the cornerbacks, if they're in a situation where they have to come up and tackle, they're going to have to come up and tackle. And Trayvon has shown that he is more willing to do that because we saw that people were coming at him on that side. So cornerbacks are going to have to come up and tackle. Linebackers are going to have to trust their eyes, be instinctive, and I also want the D ends on the opposite side of Tank to really come to play and contain better this game.
So I'm just looking at this little amazing packet that the Cowboys PR puts together. Haley just gave me the idea to look at it. It's amazing, full of great information. So on that note, I'm reading a little bullet here that y'all may or may not have heard this week, but the Cowboys have not allowed their opponents to reach the 20-point mark this season. The first time that the Cowboys have held their first 3 opponents to 19 points or less since 1973.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Making history. This team is making history. Mm-hmm. This Cowboys defense is making history. So that I'm just reading that, and that's.
I'm trying not to complain too much
about
the run defense, but I mean, what more do you want from me?
Ladies, I want to ask you. So, if you have a choice to any player, whether it be offensively, defensively, special teams, who do you think is going to have a very good game? Just based on what we're seeing, based on what we're talking about, if you had to pick one player, who do you think is going to have a good game?
Lord.
Brett
Sorry,
Maher.
my second family's walking by.
Did you say Brett Maher? Not your second family, what?
Yeah, this is my best friend's family that are walking by.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
We love whenever the tours go by. It's so much fun. Now
I also want to point out that my aunt right here, she's pregnant and she's going to have baby Micah.
Congratulations.
So baby Micah is coming into the world.
Wait,
so
the baby's name is Micah?
Her baby's name will be Micah. So
it's a biblical name. It's all right.
Incredible. Sorry, y'all. We're not supposed to get distracted right there, but that's my second family. But anyways, back to your players.
No, I joked and said Brett Maher, right? Because we joked about that not happening earlier because you put me on the spot.
You
So
make me sick.
Aisha, who's your pick?
I've been talking really heavily on the DTs. I think they have an opportunity to have a good game. That's tater tots. Come back to me. Can you go around? I don't know yet.
Okay, well, somebody I really want to see have a great game. It's no shock to anybody. It's Noah Brown. Because I think
I thought you were going to say Cavante Turpin.
Barnacles, that would have been a good one.
There you go. You can take that one. No, I'm gonna say Noah Brown, and only because I think, like you said, Haley, if you're gonna establish your identity, this is the week for him to do it. He's getting his respect. I feel like the wheels are turning, but this is the week to establish that and really solidify it, I think.
Yeah, I like that. I like Noah Brown a lot. I think that he's been such a steady presence for Cooper Rush. And I know we've spoken about that in weeks past, but just being able, stepping in to a starting quarterback role is not easy for anybody, whether it's a rookie making their first start, a backup, or whatever it is. That's a really hard thing to do. And so I think it's obviously easier when you have somebody who you're comfortable with. So I love that Cooper has his Noah and vice versa, because I think that Noah has really benefited to having Cooper Rush out there. I think for me, if I'm going to have anybody have a good game, I'm really pushing for Michael Gallup. I had a chance to speak to him one-on-one today in the locker room. I don't want to give away too much of a spoiler. We have a feature piece running on him in our pregame live show, so be sure to join us on Sunday. I'm really excited about that piece.
We're so excited to watch you.
What'd you do earlier? Just
the decoration.
The decoration. We're so excited to watch you do your thing, Haley. We're so proud of you, by the way.
Thank you.
We're so proud of you.
You're going to make me cry.
No, we're so proud of you. You're killing it.
No, but in all seriousness, it's just like it's not hard to be it is hard to be a starting quarterback. It's really hard to come back from injury, especially an ACL injury. We talked about Michael having the wherewithal to say, hey, I'm not ready yet. Yeah. And then as a result, it benefited last week. He had a really big game last week, scored a touchdown. And speaking with him today, I asked him, I said, what's the change in mentality now? You have a game under your belt, you have a week's more work of preparation. Does the mentality change at all when you step onto the field this week? And he said, oh, absolutely. He said, last week, I was still nervous. I was still, afraid, because you never know what's going to happen, especially with a knee injury. So I just think it was cool to see him last week check that box of getting back on the field. I think it'll be cool on Sunday to see him get back to that Michael Gallup, that quintessential Michael Gallup that we know and love. So that is my player I'm paying attention to.
Beautiful.
I think you said my player, and I'm just going to stick to it because it actually makes a lot of sense, because I do think that the Rams are susceptible in coverage. I think that Cavante Turpin is going to have a few opportunities there. I hope he takes them and he's smart with the ball. But last week we talked about it. The field position game was huge, and I'm hoping that they looked at the tape this game and they're hopefully going to improve there. You obviously not going against that Trey West, that is insane. Tress Way, that's insane as a punter. But field position is going to be important in this game. It's always going to be important when you have a backup quarterback as you're, running your offense right now. So Cavante Turpin, I ain't said your name in a couple weeks. Come on with it.
Turbo Terp, we're ready for you.
Quick story about Cavante before we wrap things up here. So my brother actually played college football at the Air Force Academy. I'm just name dropping all these things today.
I love it.
But my dad actually sent me a video last week. I think we were on our way to dinner, and he's like, oh, by the way, I found this video on my Facebook, and I'll be sure to post it after this. But it's a video of my brother marking Cavante Turpin at a Nike ID camp 5-6 years ago.
I love that.
And again, I'm going to flex. My brother did get the win on that one. He was able to back down. So I showed Cavante that at the locker room the other day, and he's like, man, I remembered that day, and I got him back later on, blah, blah, blah. So I think it'll be interesting to see if, I'm not taking any credit for that, but maybe it gives him a little bit of boost on Sunday.
Girl, if he has a great week, we're going to say show him that clip every week.
We hope he has a great week. All have a great week. We hope you guys all have a great evening. Thank you so much for joining us here on Girls Talk Boys Talk today. For Aisha and Jess, I am Haley, and we will see you tomorrow.
Bye.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!